Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Everybody needs to have a pile of Italian madrigals in their collection. You cannot be a serious classical music person without at least some wonderful Italian madrigals, and wonderful they are. If you've been paying attention, you'll have noticed to this channel, you'll have noticed that we've done some talks about Renaissance polyphony, sacred music, settings of masses. Those are the large forms, the big stuff. Madrigals are songs. They're the smaller forms, usually for multiple voices, but they are no less beautiful, no less exquisite, no less fabulous. But where do you start? There are a bazillion madrigalists and collections of madrigals because they came out in books, and we talked about Monteverdi's madrigals to an extent, Gesualdo madrigals. I did a video about those. They are marvelous works, but you may want a more representative sample. And there is no better place to get started in your peregrinations through the world of madrigalia than this 9 CD set on Glossa, featuring La Venexiana, fabulous group. And they've done the complete Monteverdi. They've done all kinds of other stuff as well. But this collection is 9 CDs featuring, let's see what we got here. Jacques de Wert, Luca Marenzio, Luzzaschi, interesting, Luzzaschi, yeah, okay, Carlo Gesualdo, and Sigismondo d'India. There you go. I mean, it's a mouthful. They are not the best names you've probably ever heard in your life, except maybe Gesualdo you know about. And Monteverdi is like such a separate case because he represents the final flowering and end of the Italian madrigal tradition. All of this stuff came before. So what we get here on these 9 CDs, each one is devoted to a book of madrigals by one of these composers. So CD1 is Jacques de Wert, who was a Flemish composer who spent his life working in Italy and Mantua, which is where Monteverdi was at the same time. We get La Gerusalemme Liberata, which of course is Jerusalem Liberated. That's an epic poem from which a lot of madrigal texts were taken. So we get his madrigal story thing from that collection from 1586. And then we have Luca Marenzio's 6th book of madrigals. Marenzio is marvelous. I sang a bunch of Marenzio madrigals. He was really one of the great ones. He really was. 1594. And then Luzzaschi, the 5th book of madrigals from 1595. And then we've got 2 Gesualdos. We've got the 4th book of madrigals of 1596 and the 5th book of 1611, which is quite a bit later. Gesualdo is famous for writing madrigals with extremely tortured harmonies, chromatic and scary and creepy. And he was, of course, a murderer and who spent his whole life hiding from his wife's family that wanted to kill him back because he caught her fooling around with someone else, and it was a whole thing. And he wrote really self-lacerating madrigals. They're wonderful pieces, but you take them in small doses. And then we've got more Marenzio, his 9th book of madrigals from 1599, and more Luzzaschi from the Concerto delle Dame from 1601. There were collections of madrigals that were sort of like Schubert's song cycles. They told a coherent story. They were madrigal operas, as it were, that advance a plot line or take poems all from the same collection. So they have a theme in common. And that's what you hear in some of these things. Then we've got Sigismondo d'India from 1606, his 1st book of madrigals. And then his 3rd book, as well, from 1616. Now, you get a nice booklet in here, and you also get on CD1 PDFs of all of the original booklet notes and texts, which is really, we've got to have the texts and translations, and they're in here, fortunately, which is really great. The leader of La Venexiana is Claudio Cavina, and boy, do they sing well. These recordings were made between 1997 and 2009. This is a limited edition. Who knows if it still exists? But Glossa still exists, and the individual discs probably still exist. Look up La Venexiana if you can't find the book, and start there. because they're just one of the great madrigal groups that's been making records. And the music itself is so beautiful, so rewarding. It's rich and harmonically juicy and descriptive of the text and very, very sensitive and incredibly beautiful. And most of these pieces are rather short, a few minutes long. So you can take as many as you want in a clump or listen to them over time. You don't have to rush into it. But wow, it's a world. It's a whole world of music, a whole repertoire that you probably don't know terribly well, unless like me, you were in like a madrigal group when you were in high school or college. You would have done a few of these, but there's so much of it, and it's such a rich and fully fledged group of pieces. It's a coherent and special and comprehensive expressive language, and that's the point. I mean, these people could do anything with the idiom that they were writing in, and they do, and these are beautiful. This box is just beautiful. I love it. I love it to death, and you will too. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.